Hey, I'm Red, and today we're gonna go over the simple music theory behind Roddy Ricch 25 million. And how you can use it to make your own Roddy Ricch type melodies. I don't want to waste your time, so let's get into it. This is the tip I'll be showing you now. If you already know this, skip ahead. Firstly, this song was made in the key of G sharp minor, which means that we have the following triad chords to play with, from 1 to 7. Now, when it comes to guitar beats, the chords you want to play don't usually look like this. So first we gotta fix that. They look like this. This is because the way the guitar is made, you don't play the notes in root position, which would be this. You actually would be most likely playing the root 2 times here, then the 5th in the middle, and lastly the 3rd on top. So try to remember this order if you want to make real sounding guitars. This is the tip I'll be showing you now. If you already know this, skip ahead. Now 25 million uses a classic 1-4 guitar progression as its base. The 1-4 guitar progression is very common in trap beats and has been used in beats from Travis Scott to Juice WRLD. The 1-4 means that it starts with a 1 chord and moves up to a 4 chord. And to make this progression more interesting, 25 million then adds a 3 and a 5 in the middle, which makes for a nice ascending progression. This helps keep the chord progression interesting while also adding a 5 in the end, which by now you should know that is the most common way to lead back to 1, because the 5 builds up tension and the 1 resolves it. Now throughout this whole track, producer Sesh Nolan uses a 1/3 beat grid to create triplet melodies. This basically means that he uses this grid to add 3 notes instead of 4 in a beat. This grid creates a more interesting melody, especially in this type of guitar beats, because it resembles what a real person would play in a real guitar. Nolan uses this 1/3 grid formula 3 times on this loop. Firstly, he uses them on the chords like this to create an arpeggio on every chord. Then he uses it to create a triplet progression on the chords, which helps give the melody more energy. These are simply the chords from our main progression but cut to fit into the 1/3 grid. And lastly, he uses this on the top melody, which brings me to my next point. This is the tip I'll be showing you now. If you already know this, skip ahead. This is 25 million's guitar top melody. Like always, first we need to see if our regular top melody rules apply to this track. Over the many tutorials I've made, I've found out that there are many trap top melodies that usually follow a very similar formula. This formula has the following steps. 1. Chordal notes on most downbeats. This means that the top melody uses the same notes as the chords on important places, which are the 1 and 3. The 1 and 3 are strong beats, which is why it might sound weird if you use notes outside your chords on them. If you want to go crazy, you usually would do that on the 2 and 4, which are not strong beats, they are upbeats. Here we can see that the notes on downbeats are pretty much all chordal notes. This is the root of this chord, this is the root and 3rd of this chord, and this is the 7th of this chord, which counts as a chordal note because 7th chords are pretty common. 2. Notes placed mainly in the bars 2 and 4. This refers to the fact that most rap melodies usually leave a bit of space empty on these bars and focus on placing notes on these bars. And here, even though there are a bunch of notes everywhere, we can clearly see that there are more notes towards this bars. And 3. Descending progression in the end. This descending progression is most times used to create tension and a nice voice leading back to the 1. And here, as usual, we have a descending progression. Now, we know what makes this melody make sense, but what sets it apart? That would be the 1/3 grid I was talking about. Here you can clearly see how there are 3 notes in the place where you would usually expect 4. This grid helps give the melody a more classical Spanish-like feel, and in my opinion that is what sets this melody apart from a regular trap top melody. This is the tip I'll be showing you now. If you already know this, skip ahead. And with that said, I think we can start making our own melodies now. So first, choose a scale. I'm choosing the F sharp minor. Now choose a BPM. This type of beats work well with BPMs around 130. Next, let's add a simple 1/4 progression. I'm using the nylon guitar preset on Omnisphere, by the way. Feel free to add extra chords here to make it more interesting, but I want to keep it simple. Now let's arpeggiate those chords using the 1/3 grid. In this case, I'm going for a simple ascending arpeggio instead of the one 25 million uses. I'm also going to add a quick descending progression in the end here using the triplet grid to make it more interesting. Now we know what makes this melody make sense, but what sets it apart? That would be the 1/3 grid I was talking about. Here you can clearly see how there are 3 notes in the place where you would usually expect 4. This grid helps give the melody a more classical Spanish-like feel, and in my opinion that is what sets this melody apart from a regular trap top melody. This is the tip I'll be showing you now. If you already know this, skip ahead. And with that said, I think we can start making our own melodies now. So first, choose a scale. I'm choosing the F sharp minor. Now choose a BPM. This type of beats work well with BPMs around 130. Next, let's add a simple 1/4 progression. I'm using the nylon guitar preset on Omnisphere, by the way. Like 25 million, I'm also going to add a simple spacey bell melody on top. For this, I'm using the Supreme one-shot from a Based One kit. Now, as is common on guitar beats, I'm going to also add a flute. For this pattern and for the bell one we just heard, I'm applying our 3 top melody rules. Chordal notes on downbeats, notes mainly on 2 and 4, and descending progression in the end. Plus, to make this a bit more interesting, I'm also adding the 1/3 bit grid used in 25 million here. I'm using the Amazon one-shot from a VGN Holy collab kit, by the way. Lastly, for the best and hardest part, the guitar top melody. For this, try to keep in mind our 3 top melody rules: chordal notes on most downbeats, notes placed mainly in bars 2 and 4, and descending progression in the end. And since this is a guitar beat, let's also add, use a 1/3 bit grid. Using those tips, I came up with this melody. You can see how it uses chordal notes on downbeats, has most notes in this area, and has a descending progression in the end. Now, getting this melody right took me a bunch of tries, so don't get frustrated if it's hard at first. Remember, you're using a whole new grid you're not used to yet. I also found that it helps to hum a melody along with the guitar playing first, instead of jumping to the MIDI right away. Now, all that's left is to add a progression where our guitar chords play in triplets. And with that, the loop is pretty much done. All that's left is to add some drums and arrange this thing. For the drums, I decided to go for a simple, distorted vibe, but feel free to add whatever feels right to you. And with that, the beat is pretty much done. If you want to use this melody loop, there's a free download link in the description. Use it however you want, just credit me if you end up using it. If you want to see more music theory videos, there's a bunch on my channel already and more coming every week. Let me know which song I should do next, and with that said, here's the final beat. See ya.